Book Summary: A Walk in the Park, The True Story of a Spectacular Misadventure in the Grand Canyon by Kevin Fedarko. Introduction: An ill-advised idea from the moment National Geographic photographer Pete McBride proposes the idea of walking the entire length of the Grand Canyon to his best friend Kevin Fedarko. It's clear this journey will be anything but simple. Pete describes the 750-mile trek as a walk in the park, but for Fedarko, who had just abandoned a secure life to become a whitewater rafting guide, the phrase quickly becomes ironic. Their plan, bold, ill-prepared, and infused with both romantic idealism and reckless ambition, ignites a journey into one of the most demanding wildernesses on Earth. What begins as an adventure turns into an odyssey, grueling, transcendent, and often life-threatening. It's also deeply philosophical, a meditation on wilderness, preservation, friendship, failure, history, and the fierce beauty of the natural world. Chapter 1. Into the Abyss. Fedarko and McBride's initial foray into the canyon is disastrous. They overestimate their ability to find water, underestimate the brutality of the terrain, and clash over decision-making. This early failure nearly ends the journey before it truly begins. Their egos, strained friendship, and lack of preparedness become as much an obstacle as the landscape. Yet this trial by error serves as the crucible that galvanizes their commitment to finish the traverse. No matter how long it takes, as they re-enter the canyon in earnest, the narrative zooms out to explore what it means to walk the Grand Canyon. There's no continuous trail, only fragmentary routes stitched together through obscure footpaths and dangerous climbs. Only a few elite hikers have ever attempted or completed it. Fedarko and McBride quickly realize they are venturing into a world of pure exposure, physical, emotional, and existential. Chapter 2. The vertical labyrinth. The Grand Canyon is not a valley you walk through. It is a maze you must descend into, climb out of, and often scramble across at great risk. The terrain is relentlessly vertical, riddled with cliffs, rockfalls, and slot canyons. There are no clear lines of navigation, and even experienced guides often get lost. Temperatures swing violently. Water is nearly absent. Food must be rationed. Blisters, infections, fatigue, and hallucinations become normal. Here, Fedarko's narrative strength emerges. He doesn't just describe awe, he induces it. Through lyrical and immersive prose, he pulls the reader into this multi-dimensional space, showing how its scale warps perception. The canyon is not just grand in size, but in time. Its rock layers reveal hundreds of millions of years of geologic history. Chapter 3. The Invisible Canyon. Most Americans know the Grand Canyon from the rim. But what lies below the Invisible Canyon, as Fedarko calls it, is sacred, hidden world. The deeper they go, the more the grandeur gives way to intimacy. Tiny ferns growing in crevices, endangered frogs chirping in ephemeral pools, ancient handprints on cave walls. These details are unknown to the average visitor, but mean everything to the few who walk the inner gorge. Throughout the journey, the two men are mentored by veteran through hikers, rare individuals who have spent years mapping and traversing the canyon. These trail angels become lifelines and sources of spiritual insight. They introduce Fedarko and McBride to pockets of enchantment, places of unspeakable beauty, often tucked behind unmarked ravines or inside remote caves, many of which have never been photographed or published. Chapter 4. History written in stone. In silence, the trek becomes a journey into America's buried past. 11 Native American tribes have ancestral ties to the canyon. Some of these communities, Havasupai, Hopi, Zuni, Navajo, and others, permit Fedarko and McBride to hear their stories, many of which stand in stark contrast to the dominant white-centric mythology of national parks. Sacred sites, desecrated burial grounds, and spiritual pathways are revealed to the hikers only through trust and humility. This chapter explores how the national parks, once heralded as America's best idea, have also been landscapes of erasure. Tribes were displaced, and their cultural landmarks rebranded as natural wonders for consumption. Fedarko is shaken by the realization that even his dream of traversing the canyon might unwittingly contribute to its exploitation. Chapter 5. Death on the trail. As the months drag on and the terrain becomes more perilous, the physical toll escalates. The pair experience multiple close calls, missteps on cliffs, water poisoning, heat exhaustion. They are almost crushed by rockfall, nearly swept away in flash floods, and pushed to the brink of collapse. At one point, McBride begins to bleed internally, requiring an emergency evacuation. Fedarko is left to continue alone for several harrowing days. Their journey is mirrored by news from the outside. Fedarko's father, a man who once dreamed of seeing the Grand Canyon but never did, is dying. As he begins to fade, He leaves Fedarko voice messages and letters that spark reflection on their strained relationship and on how time itself is the greatest canyon, vast, deep, and unbridgeable. Chapter 6. Reunions and Revelations. Eventually, McBride recovers and rejoins the trek. The bond between the two men, tested and frayed, begins to heal through shared suffering and mutual. Fedarko writes that the canyon didn't just test them, it rewrote them. They began the journey as adventurers. They ended it as pilgrims. Together, they walked the final miles of the journey through the most challenging and least understood portions of the canyon. With the Colorado River roaring below and 750 miles behind them, they finished the traverse transformed, not only in body but in mind. Chapter 7. A Park in Peril. The final section is both elegy and call to action. The Grand Canyon faces increasing threats from commercial tourism, mining, and development. Despite being a protected national park, it remains vulnerable due to gaps in legislation, jurisdictional conflicts, and relentless demand for access and entertainment. Fedarko urges a deeper, more reverent relationship with wild places. He argues that preservation must go beyond protection. It must include understanding, humility, and restraint. The canyon is not a playground or a theme park. It is a cathedral of deep time and sacred heritage. Themes and takeaways. Humility in the face of nature. The Grand Canyon does not yield easily to human ambition. Fedarko's journey reveals that only by submitting to its rhythms, its scale, its silence, its danger, can one begin to know it. Friendship and fracture at its core. A Walk in the Park is about friendship, what it endures, what it reveals, and how it changes. Fedarko and McBride's relationship is strained to breaking but ultimately forged into something rare. The Myth of the National Park. The book challenges the romanticized myth of the national parks by revealing the indigenous history erased in their creation. It recenters native voices and exposes the ongoing injustices tied to land preservation. The power of storytelling. Fedarko doesn't merely recount events, he weaves them into a grand narrative about time, memory, landscape, and legacy. His prose is poetic yet grounded, philosophical but intimate. The plea for preservation. In the end, this isn't just a travel memoir. It's a love letter to one of Earth's most majestic places, and a plea to preserve its wild soul before it's too late. Conclusion. Not just a walk. What began as a walk in the park became a crucible that tested every fiber of Fedarko's being. It's a story of physical endurance and emotional unraveling, of near-death and reawakening, of disconnection and reconciliation. It is also a testament to the Grand Canyon itself, its silent wisdom, haunting beauty, and fierce resistance to being known. Through his deeply human journey, Fedarko reminds us why wild places matter, and why we must fight to keep them wild.